Hello, and welcome to the HPTV Podcast, where we talk about the Harry Potter TV show coming to HBO in a long time. I'm Mitchell here along with Jamie and Steven. Give us a like and a subscribe and follow us at HPTV Pod on all your socials or email us at hptvpodcast@gmail.com. Today, we'll be discussing all the latest news and notes and then diving deep on the Sorting Hat, our lovely sentient piece of headwear. First and foremost, I assume filming is going on in Leavesden Studios. They haven't been on location as much. I also thought maybe they're trying to get some of this shot before it gets too cold, and they don't want to be on location as much in the cold. It's been fairly mild here. Hasn't been too cold. Also, like I said, there was the premiere for the audio. Why do I keep not being able to say like the full cast audio editions? And so, of course, Arabelle Stanton, who's going to be Hermione, was there, and she's getting asked about the show, and I think she's very much going along the PR lines of I'm so excited to play this character and we're having a great time, but like not actually saying anything, which one, she's 11, and two, what could we glean? But it is interesting, just these people have to exist in the world, but it is more likely that an adult like John Lithgow is going to do a play soon, and he's more likely to spoil something, I think.
Well, he was spilling the beans like right after being cast. He's like, yeah I'm doing that. Like,
before they announced it. Yeah.
Before they announced it or confirmed it. He's like, yep, I'm Dumbledore. But we love that.
And then HBO, there's Harry Potter content brand new on HBO Max right now. The Wizards of Baking season 2. I never watched season 1. Did you guys?
I attempted to. It was not my thing. It was a little too like stylized and over the top. I just want to see the baking. I love Bake Off, and I used to like, Top Chef and all that stuff here. But it's just a little bit too like, let's dive into this scene from the movie. And it's like, no, just do the baking and let's see the cool stuff. But I'm happy it exists. And I love the Phelps brothers.
More the better. Keep the fandom strong so that we get the entire series and they don't drop it halfway through. But but I'm with you. The show, I mean, it was really interesting. They made some really cool stuff. I probably saw 3 of the episodes. My kids really liked it. But yeah, some of it was very much like almost like forced. Like, tell us why this is important to you and your favorite part of the books. And it can just be like, it's cool and it's tied to Harry Potter. That's all you need. So it seemed a little bit forced, was my only criticism, but it was really fun, and I really liked the Phelps twins.
Yeah, you knew it was going to be cheesy. It's like they did that trivia show a couple years ago, and I couldn't even really get into it, and they were really forcing different elements. But, you got to go for it. At least they're trying. It was interesting. I was listening to a podcast called The Town today, which is by the guy who used to run The Hollywood Reporter, and they did a franchise draft, and they do this every year, of what you think will perform the strongest. And one guy took like Minecraft and one was like K-pop Demon Hunters. And the guy was like, I think there's so much more power in Harry Potter than you think. So he kind of took it as his last draft pick, but just what individual franchises you think could continue to make tons of money in the future. I'm like, but it all hinges on this series because, all that little cutesy programming doesn't work. Whereas if this works, you get spinoffs, you might get a new story that could be theatrical. We're going to talk about that Sorting Hat today. The Founders. A lot of people want that story because it could feel so different, but be within the same magic system and world. Who knows? But we deserve better than a baking show, and I love a baking show. Okay.
I think people really, like, you read the comments and stuff on TikTok, there's always that person like, oh, it's going to fail right away. And I'm like, people don't even like Harry Potter. And Harry Potter runs deep within people. People are going to be watching the show. At least people are going to give it a chance. So unless they royally screw it up, it's coming. And it seems like HBO has a lot of confidence in it. And so I just don't think underestimating it. And then again, you see all the comments like, why are they redoing it? They don't need to redo it. And just us rereading books, like we're reading Chamber of Secrets now. And there's all these little details and things that I'm like, this will be a completely different experience for people who've only seen the movies. There's so much more to the books than what's in the movies. And I mean, I hope it is.
I think back to a lot of haters back when they announced the Star Wars Force Awakens was going to be made, right? When Disney brought Lucasfilm. And they're like, no one likes Star Wars anymore. That's such old crap. No one's going to go see that. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, Star Wars fans are freaking crazy and they would love that. And I really hate that they kind of turned out to be a little bit right because the sequel trilogy was not
I
awesome.
like Force Awakens. I
like Force Awakens, but I feel like it,
I love it too. The trailer made me cry.
It goes downhill fast.
But
it was
I think
exciting to watch that movie the first time.
Oh, the first time you see the trailer and you see Han Solo and Chewie, it's just whatever. Made me cry. But I don't think people realize that. Like, we all have people in our lives who are not Harry Potter people, and they'll talk to us about Harry Potter and they're like, oh, you really are passionate about Harry Potter? But when you meet those people, again, it runs deep. Like, it is part of our childhood. It's a very big thing, and I think less and less kids and culture are having things in common, and we're kind of the last generation that had these pivotal big moments, and, obviously the world is trying to take all our money for all these things, but we're willing to give it because we love it. And you just think about how much the amusement park makes. Their studio tour is doing fine. Like, people are spending money on Potter, for sure.
And people are podcasting about it.
People are a bunch of weirdos podcast. No, one thing that's kind of a notable piece of news we talked about before, but I feel like I saw a lot more on and gained traction this week is the rumor that Netflix is wanting to buy Warner Brothers Discovery, which is, I think we talked before about what would that do to our Potter plans and maybe just the way that it's produced or imagined and stuff. And hopefully nothing. Hopefully it just means more money.
What's interesting is, I've overthought how this can go because the first actual bid was made by Paramount, which was recently bought by the guy who runs Oracle. Well, his son, David Ellison, and they essentially were going to overpay and do like $23 to $25 a share. And then people are saying, no, we could get more like 30 to 40. And I know that means gobbledygook to anyone, but he was really adamant about buying Paramount. It'd be very interesting because Paramount and Warner Brothers are known for like having their lots being classic studios. Whereas if like Netflix or Amazon, I think Amazon is the second most likely in my eyes to buy it. That is so different. And it would be consolidating two services or just saying, okay, you want anything Warner Brothers, whether it be Harry Potter or DC, now it's going to be on Prime. Netflix has expressly denied it, but also they expressly know that they've been having discussions kicking the tires because they said, oh, we build, we don't buy. And it's like, okay, none of your inherent IP has truly taken off other than like Stranger Things. You burn things out, and you used to be a library system where you would bring things in, and even now they're acquiring, like they have Miss Rachel, they're doing like, they're buying YouTubers, they're putting Spotify podcasts. They just took a bunch of Spotify podcasts and put them on Netflix. So you do buy things. Let's not pretend otherwise. But it would be a big commitment to buy a library like Warner Brothers. And Comcast is also, Peacock and Paramount Plus could combine. Comcast, they own Universal, which Universal has the theme park rights, could have some synergy there. But I don't know if Universal has a classic lot. And everyone's like, well, if they bought them, maybe they'd keep them as a separate theatrical studio and then merge the rest of the assets. I'm like, they want to make money. They want to cull jobs. They want to operate nimbly. So they might use the legacy name Warner Brothers, but it wouldn't exist in the same way. So, but it will affect the series because it seems like they're for sure going to get bought within the next year or two.
Yeah. It's gonna.
Well, the best you can hope for, like if a Netflix or an Amazon buys them, right, is that they buy them for the catalog and they let the studios run the studios, right? But they want to cut out a lot of fat and save money and stuff.
I mean, I wouldn't
worry.
worry.
On who.
I would say Thrones is safe. Potter is, with this that's rolling, is going to be safe. And then they're not going to cut out James Gunn and what he's doing at DC unless he starts to lose a bunch of money. So those would be the pillars of what you're acquiring, because you're hoping you're going to make a couple $100 million on each of these theatrical releases, or Harry Potter is going to really be able to hold up a streaming service as kind of one of those marquee shows.
It just makes me nervous because it's just Netflix and Prime mainly. They gamble, but they gamble cheaply, and then they cut the fat quick. Like they are like, nope, we're not making enough out of this. And obviously, I think Harry Potter and these bigger franchises might be different, but at the same time, it's a little scary.
The exception is Rings of Power, which we know they spent about $250 million just to acquire the rights, and then the production's been expensive. Now, they did move it to New Zealand, from New Zealand to London, which rude, taking all that work away from New Zealand, who we owe so much of the Peter Jackson trilogy to. But they've kept it going. A lot of people have said that because they need to keep Rings of Power going and see if they can make it pay off in the end. That is part of why Wheel of Time didn't get renewed, because they couldn't pay for these two massive fantasy series. Well, they can, because we all buy our other crap through Amazon, and that's where they really get their money. But it'll be very interesting to see where Warner Brothers ends up and how that is going to affect Harry, whether they would have given more. If this is the only thing keeping them, they would have obviously given it more runway. It's crazy.
I really wonder at what point, when you look at different possible purchasers, like at what point like antitrust issues come into play and stuff too, because you already, like, Disney and Comcast are so massive that once you start, merging a couple of the smaller ones, you're down to,
here's the thing,
it's not as competition anymore.
Disney and Comcast are massive, but like there's a reason that Universal and Warner Brothers and all these other things are like now, like GE used to own Comcast. Like Warner Brothers and Time merged. Remember when magazines were big? It was Time Warner, and then they had AOL, and then AT&T bought them. So these tech companies, like, it's all intermingled now with these massive conglomerates. The thing I will say for Disney and Comcast, and I don't think Disney would ever buy them, but that would be hilarious, is they have to play against Apple and Amazon and Netflix now. And Netflix has kind of won the streaming war for now. They are a utility for most people. And then Apple and Amazon technically don't need the money. Disney needs Disney Plus to do well. Like, they're not being held up like they used to be. So I don't know. Who are we just being like, oh, this billionaire, screw them all. All right. You know where they'd all get sorted? Slytherin, probably. Let's move on to the Sorting Hat, our beautiful sentient being of a speaking cap that you put on your noggin, and it gives you your personality test. It's better than the color test. It's better than the love languages. It's better than the Franklin Myers. I don't remember the name of the personality test. There's the one where it's like you're a number, and then there's the one where it's like, I'm an ETFLJ. Anyway, that's not as good as the Sorting Hat. So, Stephen, start us off with some of the origins of what we know of the Sorting Hat and its enchanted beginnings.
The Sorting Hat, it was Godric Gryffindor's hat. They decided to enchant it back when they realized that they were not going to live forever, and so they needed something to be able to sort students into the different houses. It was enchanted by all 4 founders, and it's unique because it's sentient. It can perform legitimacy. It can read people's minds, which not a lot of objects can do. It also can sing, and it writes a new song every year, but it does have an entire year to do that. So I guess a certain level of intelligence may not be required if you can have that long. But yeah, it speaks, it makes judgments, right? It retains centuries of memory from the founders all the way to current times. So when Hogwarts was founded in the late 10th century, the founders, they chose students personally, right? But then they were worried about, how is this going to keep going?
Can we, it is funny that it was a draft before, right? I mean, I'm sure they would like interview the kids and be like, oh, your personality is like mine. You should be in my house. But there had to be some fights like, well, this one's smart.
Maybe there was some
They're
politics.
also brave. They're also, and then
this one has a rich daddy.
Yeah, he might be able to donate enough that I can build a chamber full of secrets.
Oh man. So that's it. It was enchanted to read minds. It's not really meant to judge people, but it is meant to sort you into where you are most likely to succeed. What's interesting, as we learn, I'm sure we'll discuss later, is that it's judging all of this based on a point in time when a kid is 11 years old. And so kids at 11 have aspirations and thoughts on things that can change over time as they experience things. So we've talked plenty before in our episodes where we've sorted different people that things change over time. And so there's a section later where we'll talk about some of these arguably missed sortings or people put in the wrong house. But the hat was given a specific personality so that it could weigh people's courage, their intelligence, their loyalty, their ambition. And so that can be very nuanced, even when you spend, years with a person to understand exactly what drives them. And the hat can figure it out in like 30 seconds, a minute.
Magic. I got to say, I get the flaws of the hat, but I also think there's a lot you are inherently at 11. But you do change a lot by the time you're 17. There's also a lot of people who may not really evolve out of maybe an initial house until their 30s, 40s. Like, maybe I'm going to be a total douchebag at 50 and I'll have to go back into Slytherin. No, I'm just kidding. No offense to my Slytherin friends. But Jamie, can you just quick breakdown? I know we all know about the houses, but can you tell us who the founders were and just a little bit about these houses and why people feel this loyalty or this annoyance with the sorting systems?
Okay, so the 4 houses, as we all probably know, are Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. Godric Gryffindor was the head of Gryffindor House. He's the founder, and he valued bravery. He believed that magical education was for all, so including Muggleborns, which is reflected in a lot of Muggleborns they just usually don't get sorted into Slytherin, but a lot get sorted into Gryffindor because of this. And then there was Helga Hufflepuff, who prized loyalty, hard work, and fairness, and also inclusivity. So she was also kind of on the everyone's welcome kind of board. And that's why you see a lot of Hufflepuff jokes and things. And it's like the everyman kind of.
I thought you were going to make a D&I joke.
But
I was worried.
it's kind of, people say it's like where the leftovers go, but it's really just everyone could kind of belong in Hufflepuff. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that just might be that you are a little more well-rounded. And then there's Rowena Ravenclaw, and she was very smart. So she prized intelligence, wit, and learning. And then, of course, Salazar Slytherin, and he was all about ambition, cunning, and resourcefulness. And he also had views on selective blood status. So when Hogwarts was founded, everything was good, hunky-dory, until they started selecting students, and Slytherin really pushed not allowing people who came from non-magical families to go to the school. So that's, why he left and why the Chamber of Secrets and all that happened. But
I really wonder, Jamie, did you find anything on like how long like the school functioned with all four of them before Slytherin? I've always been curious about that, and I wonder if like the Harry Potter lexicon or something, they have all kinds of interesting details.
I'm sure I was reading about it. I just didn't take that to memory, but there was a time where they were working together and figuring things out together. And obviously they set up the whole school before he eventually left. The hat was sewn roughly 1,000 years ago.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. I don't know if 1,000 years ago for today. But anyway, so the student puts on the hat. Most students, it goes all the way over their eyes because it's an adult hat and it's going on 11-year-old children. And it sorts you into a house after sometimes having a discussion with you, after sometimes not. And we'll get into more of that. And then, so basically the house just reflects the values of the founder and of the school overall. And a lot of people think that, since it was Gryffindor's hat, that maybe he has more to do with that. But like Steven said, they created the hat because they realized they wouldn't live forever. So they enchanted it to carry out all this intelligence to sort everyone and keep the school going. And so it carries a little bit of each of them and balances that in within its sorting, which is kind of cool, which we'll talk about its personality later.
But
sorry. One more note. We've talked about this before in the podcast, but you can go to harrypotter.com/sorting hat and you can be sorted on your own.
We should address quickly that there have been, from the beginning of this fandom, been different sorting websites. And I think, and there were the basic ones where it was like, if you encountered a troll, what would you do? And the 4 options were very obvious what they were. And then there were 200 question ones. And then there's the Pottermore one, which is an official one. And none of us own a sorting hat, do we? There's not been an official sorting experience, but I think that's right. I think you can't do that to a kid, because then they'll, what does that hat know? It's not magic. But you know what is magical? Music. And this hat conveys its personality as well a lot through its songs. So every year it writes a song. And the songs, by the way, I don't know how he keeps up on the news, but they're relevant to what's going on in this wizarding world. I was thinking someone needs to ask the hat for advice, or if there's a question in history of magic, hey, we don't know what actually happened that year. Maybe the Sorting Hat knows. Anyway, we get in the Harry Potter books just 3 Sorting Hat songs in 1991, 1994, and 1995, where it hit number 10 on the British Wizards Top 100, just behind Celestina Warbucks' comeback song. I don't know what it's called. Anyway, so the songs in the book are quite long, and so I was going to recite them, but I don't think I can. I think the key to the first year one is just that this is Harry's first introduction to these houses outside of these little tidbits he gets from Draco and Hagrid. But the set has very self-referential. It says, "Oh, you may not think I'm pretty, but don't judge on what you see. I'll eat myself if you can find a smarter hat than me." And he talks about hats, and then there's a paragraph about each of the houses, and he says, "So put me on, don't be afraid, and don't get in a flap. You're in safe hands, though I have none, for I'm a thinking cap." Very clever, very well done by J.K. Rowling. What separates the 1994 and 5 song is they are relevant to the happenings of Lord Voldemort and the danger and how everyone needs to stick together despite their differences. So the hat's I'm going to divide you, and tell you what makes you different and why you should fight each other at Quidditch. But also, we're all in this together. And that is where the lyric comes from for High School Musical. Well, also, it says in the 1994 song where they're from. It says, Bold Gryffindor from Wild Moor, Fair Ravenclaw from Glen, Sweet Hufflepuff from Valley Broad, and Shrewd Slytherin from Fen. Gosh, what a good rhyme. But really good, clever, longer songs. And then there's a 2008 song. Now, what is it from? I think it's from a game. I think it's from Wizards Unite or something. But I feels bad that it wasn't written by Joe, and it's quite short. It says, you might belong in Gryffindor where the bravest dwell. Oh, this is derivative. I'm not even going to finish this. This is terrible. There's also one from 2017. Let me see what the reference is on this. I have no idea what 2017. Oh, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. That makes sense.
Not canon.
Also very short. I've done this job for centuries. On every student's head I've sat. Of thoughts I've take inventories, for I'm the famous sorting hat. I've sorted high, I've sorted low. I've done the job through thick and thin. So put me on and you will know which house you should be in. Feels a bit lazy. Oh, and then there was a second one in Cursed Child. But more importantly, the one that I will read, which, by the way, I have not pre-read, is I went into ChatGPT and I said, write me a Sorting Hat song for 2025 with modern slang. Again,
Oh, no.
I have not pre-screened this. Do not put this on. Don't put it on TikTok if it's bad. I really wish Hannah wasn't in here right now.
Are you going to sing it?
She's already laughing at you back there.
I think I'm supposed to rap it.
Do it.
She's so
This
embarrassed.
is your viral moment, Mitchell.
I'm putting this on TikTok. Can Hannah stand behind you?
Okay, here's the thing.
100%.
I should have rehearsed it if I was going to rap it well. But here's the reason I think it should start with a rap. It should be a rap because it starts with, maybe this is more of a 90s thing. The first two words are yo, yo. Here we go. Yo, yo, it's your hat back again. Been chilling in the chest since way back when. You think I'm dusty? Nah, I'm iconic. Still dropping bars that are purely harmonic. Now hush up, first years, grab your seat. Gonna start your souls to a magical beat. I see your aura, your vibe, your core. Let's find you a fam forevermore.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much.
They use modern slang or like
It
2005?
was like a mix of 90s.
It put like the word modern in and it took it from since the internet began.
Modern can mean a lot. They had
Oh.
vibe in there.
Gryffindor's got lit, which is only a few years old. Gryffindor, they stay bold and lit. Jump in head first, no time to quit. Main character energy, brave and true. If drama pops off, they're the first to cue. They'll slay the dragon, break the chain, might overshare, but never plain. Slytherin. Stop it, Jamie. I can't do it. I can't finish it.
Okay, go. I'll
Slytherin.
stop.
Slick with the moves, got 10-year plans and villain grooves, low-key power, mastermind flex. They'll gaslight fate, then send a text. Ambition, yup, vibes elite. They run the world from the dungeon suite. Ravenclaw, brains on blast, scrolling way too fast, deep in thought, existential feels. Their group chat's full of conspiracy reels. They know the lore, the memes, the code. Their essays fire. Their sleep erode. All right. Hufflepuff. Pure gold inside. They'll fix your mood and match your stride. Mainly chillin', but don't get it twisted. They'll cook, they'll clean, they're well assisted. What? Kindness always. Loyalty tight. They're the soft-spoken legends of the night. I should have done this in an Eminem style. I'm so sorry. I just thought of that.
You're kind of doing like Ice Cube style. Okay.
I was going to pick Ice. Yeah, okay. Last line here. So throw me on, don't catch a fit. The hat don't cap. I just commit. Wherever your house, your Hogwarts kin. Now go be great and let the magic begin. Oh,
So this is
why
like if
didn't I go
Lin-Manuel-
Hamilton?
Lin-
Yeah, that was a little bit more Hamilton at the end there.
And I love
We'll
how
have to go and
the
record it in
Hufflepuffs-
different versions
My
and release
wife
each. And see
It's so
how-
embarrassing. I can't.
She like laying like in a field
This is
position
your
on the
guys'
floor right
Christmas
now. like-
card.
She's literally on the couch, just like, what did I marry?
Tell her we tried to tell you, Hannah. We tried to warn you, and you didn't listen. It's your
They
fault.
said they tried to warn you, Hannah.
I really wanted to go to the UK.
All right. So the Sorting Hat sings a song every year, and my responsibility was to convey to you the messages of those songs. Okay. And I
This is
think I
beautiful.
did.
You did a really good
need
job.
to be done.
I commend your bravery. You are a Gryffindor.
It's one of those times where I'm like, it's a good thing our listenership has plateaued where it has.
But what if this picks it up? What if we go viral?
Hey,
this could be it. This was the thing that'll make us go viral.
Well,
Mitchell,
I don't get embarrassed generally, but I do think if people who haven't like heard from me in 10 plus years, i.e. everyone from high school, saw that, they'd be like, oh my hell, what happened to that guy? Oh no. All my exes will be like, wow, dodged
that bullet, right?
Is he also wearing jorts? Actually, jorts are kind of back in, aren't they?
Not Jamie approved.
All right. Next up is the personality. Jamie, what is the personality of the Sorting Hat?
I don't know if I can follow. Apparently, the personality has changed quite a bit in the last 20 years.
He keeps with the times and the rhymes.
All right. So, as Mitchell mentioned at the beginning, the hat is sentient. The hat thinks for itself. It processes. It remembers. It's witty, sarcastic, deep, insightful. Discusses with people, as we see with Harry. So, it's kind of a one-sided discussion, but because it's reading Harry's mind as Harry's sitting there. But, he says when Harry's on there, he says, difficult, very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind either. So that might be the movie version. But he's talking to Harry and like explaining what he's seeing. I found this quote that was on the Harry Potter fandom wiki, and it's JK being asked about the hat. So one time she was in an interview, and she stated that it's never been wrong and it's always right. And then in Pottermore, she stated it has remarkably few errors of judgment over the many centuries it's been at work. She also stated that in those cases, students did not exhibit the qualities traditionally associated with their houses. And the hat steadfastly backs its original decision. So it seems like whatever decision it makes, it kind of sticks with it and will defend that decision. Even if others think it's wrong.
Personality is that it's incredibly stubborn.
And I put this in my notes and I said, maybe a little like J.K. Rowling, because she's very stubborn in what she believes in, which we have learned, but also even back when people have asked her things about the books, she's very like, nope, this is how this is why I did this. Even if we could tell reading through the books that like, oh, this obviously changed, or she had to go back and kind of retcon it. Like there's things which totally makes sense when you're writing a series this long, but it did kind of remind me of her personality a little bit. So maybe her and that are, there's moments we see that it's making decisions, like it debates with Harry between Gryffindor and Slytherin, and it tells Harry you would be great in Slytherin. But it also shows that it takes the student's opinion into account and that it can think through that and reassess because of that. And so I think that's kind of cool in that it shows that we all have choices about where we end up and where we go. But I think there's other students who probably just kind of go and they just want to go with the flow and the hat just decides for them. And I wonder, like, how many students really are sorted into Slytherin every year? Because I bet most students are probably thinking, I don't want to be in Slytherin. And all the Slytherins are just thinking, I want to be in Slytherin.
I think Slytherin almost has to have this more real world quality of like success, so that people who are ambitious want to be in there, that may not actually be evil, that may not, they're like, oh, it's not selfish to just want to be right and to come out on top. I think it's somewhat, but it is a kid's story. I think when it is a good versus evil story, so in the beginning it is interesting to say, oh, all these 11-year-olds are going to be evil to some degree, and that's why the gray area again, like you kind of said, there's some evolution in that.
Well, I think too, like if this has been doing this for 1,000 years now, right? This hat, and so this is one of the reasons why I think the Founders series would be really interesting, because we know that for the last 50 years or so, Slytherin has been kind of considered, evil and like the house that all these people don't want to be in and stuff. But I don't know, was that the attitude before, or was it, before the focus was on Gryffindor being all these wannabe heroes and stuff, and none of them actually had what it took or something like that. You know what I mean? So I'm really curious about like the ebb and flow and like popularity of the different houses. I also think through like, does the Sorting Hat worry about like how equally distributed the students are. Like in the back of its mind, is it
Yeah.
like, nope, those 3 went there. I got to drop one over here now. And like,
Gotta
doesn't
do
really matter. He's 11. He'll change anyway. you
They're
know?
out of bets.
The
Well,
next
the
3 are
other
Hufflepuffs.
with nature versus nurture, it's like how much self-fulfilling prophecies are there. Like a kid was like, oh, I'm very bookish, I'll probably be in Ravenclaw, and then all of a sudden they're in Gryffindor, and they're like, oh, I gotta go out there and be brave, even though they're maybe not brave. But maybe that's a good thing. Or like someone who thought they were dumb gets put in Ravenclaw and they study real hard.
Yeah, it shows them who they are. I thought about like the Patil twins. It's like, if I was that twin and my sister had just been sorted, in my mind, I'd automatically be like, oh, well, I hope I'm with my sister, because that's your comfort. That's like someone you know. And then to immediately not be sorted with them. So it's like, that's probably, I don't know which one went second, but they probably wanted to be with them, and then the hat put them somewhere else. But also maybe they needed that. Maybe they needed to be their own
I
person.
do know some twins who like got really sick of each other though too. So I wonder if one of them actively chose a different house because she's like, I can't spend another,
She's
70
like,
years
get me
next to this
away.
chick. I will strangle her. Like I don't know.
And then just other times we see, the only other time we really see personality outside the sorting, and we're going to talk about general things that happen outside of sorting. So I'll mention this again, but when Harry puts the hat on in Dumbledore's office in Chamber of Secrets, the hat immediately knows what Harry wants and what Harry's thinking. And he says, be in your bonnet, Harry Potter. And you've been wondering whether I put you in the right house. Yes, you are particularly difficult to place, but I stand by what I said. You would have done well in Slytherin. So the hat remembers, and then it stands by what it said before, even though it sorted somewhere else for him. And then just in general, part of its personality too, which we might talk about with the actual famous sortings or the sortings we see, is how quick or how long it takes with different people. So that just shows a difference as a sentient being, that it's thinking and that it takes into account everyone differently, as opposed to just being like a magical hat that you just touch on each person's head and it quickly would sort them. Like it's thinking through and it's discussing things.
Sometimes you just smell like a house. I'm supposed to touch on just when we see it in the books, and we've kind of covered it, but generally it's in books 1, 4, 5, and 7. 7 only in a pensive, and that is just, those are actual sortings. And then of course in book 2, Harry is able to pull the Gryffindor sword from it, so it shows there is some sort of bigger connection to the founders. And Harry has a discussion where he asks, are you sure you put me in the right house? And the hat doesn't double back. He's like, you would have done well in Slytherin. And I think that also could do with the Horcrux that is in Harry, probably. In the films, it only sings the song in the first film, but it was filmed for the 4th and 5th, according to this Wikipedia page. Could absolutely be wrong. Also, it sings from 2 flaps. I actually think it's a really nice production design, whereas in the books it is described that the brim is where it's going to be speaking out of. And then, yeah, it's interesting that in some of the different versions of the book, some of the names do and do not get sorted like they do. That gets updated at some point. And then, yeah, there's lots of great collectibles and Legos of it. And yeah, J.K. Rowling's kind of, you guys have kind of gone over that. Well,
maybe this just, lends itself to my personality. But if we know that the hat can like transport things and Dumbledore kept it in his office, do you think he just like used it to like get snacks from the kitchens or something? And it was like, whoop, just pull out. Because I mean, we know it can transport a sword. Is that the only thing we've ever seen it like transport?
In time of need, Stephen. So, and it was from a founder. So it's not, he was like,
if he's hungry and it's late and he doesn't want to walk all the way to the kitchen, that's a time of need.
Helga Hufflepuff's favorite snack was a lemon cake. I can just pull one right out of this hat. Clever theory.
I mean, why not?
All right.
I would love some clarification from Rowling on that lore there.
Stephen, do you have any famous sortings you can think of, or missortings or hat stalls that we know of from our stories?
There are actually quite a lot. I was surprised when I looked into this. So we have kind of the classic Golden Trio, right? They're extremely famous after defeating, Voldemort. Basically, all by
Gilderoy
themselves, the rest of the adults were
extremely
useless.
Famous.
So important. So Harry, Hermione, and Ron, of course, and then you've got your Neville, Draco, right? Draco was noticed because there was no debate. The hat barely touched his head and was like, yeah, that's a Slytherin scumbag. Hermione was nearly going to Ravenclaw. Neville nearly went to Hufflepuff, and Harry could have gone to Slytherin. like we talked about. So even though they're notable, I think that's important because they were well-rounded enough to where like they didn't easily fall into one category. It's kind of like, okay, these kids have more to them, and they're the ones who, showed up and saved the world. Except for Draco, he still sucks. So historically speaking, Minerva McGonagall, she was what we call a hat stall, which is where the hat sat on her head for a long time, a full 5 minutes while it deliberated between Gryffindor and Ravenclaw, because she was very intelligent but also courageous. We know, of course, that she was sorted into Gryffindor, as she should have been. Phileas Flitwick, similarly, he was a hat stall, another 5-minute case, and also between Ravenclaw and Gryffindor, but he went the other direction. Peter Pettigrew often is considered a missort because he was sent into Gryffindor. His later cowardice and treachery seems a little anti-Gryffindorian. Is that a word? It is now.
He was brave enough to do it.
I mean, he's brave enough to turn on his best friends and get them all killed. No, but it's saying at 11, we kind of assume the way he wanted to be friends with Sirius and James, right? He idolized that bravery, right? He wanted to be among those people. But at some point, he must have realized that he himself was not brave and just became a sniveling little follower, a rat, quite literally. So they call it a missort. But again, it just lends itself to the fact that 11-year-old kids are not necessarily what they're going to be when they're older. Tom Riddle went into Slytherin, of course. Luna Lovegood was a solid Ravenclaw. Cedric Diggory, a solid Hufflepuff. Horace Slughorn, interestingly, is good-natured, but still ambitious. And not cruel, but that still put him in Slytherin, just not the evil Slytherin stereotype. So it is possible for good, ambitious people to end up in Slytherin. So other controversial missorting debates around Severus Snape. So we know that later in life, he was very brave and loyal. However, as a kid, arguably, he did some brave things.
And he was just deranged enough to make decisions that could have gotten him killed.
There's some interesting psychological discussion around that, actually, because people who are stalkers but refuse to believe that they're stalkers have to convince themselves it's true love. And therefore, even after their stalkee is dead, he had to keep going and, do everything because otherwise he'd be just a creepy stalker. Albus Dumbledore was extremely intelligent, so he could have gone into Ravenclaw as well. Remus Lupin could have gone into Ravenclaw, and Sirius Black obviously had a lot of Slytherin heritage. He was the first Black not to go into Slytherin in I don't know how many generations, which his family was very disappointed about. And then the legendary Merlin, apparently he was a Slytherin, and I'm confused why that's listed under the missortings. It says that he was a nice Slytherin, basically, but he was definitely a Slytherin because of his ambition. So the hat sorts for potential, not necessarily for current personality. It allows students to give their input, like Jamie talked about. It balances the founder's ideas, and hat stalls kind of are a result of that. And then sometimes it sorts people aspirationally, as I think Peter Pettigrew is an example of someone who really, really wishes that they were brave and all of that. And so it puts them with the brave people, and sometimes that goes south. And missorts are rarely true errors. The sorting hat will tell you that it is never wrong. But in some ways, we see them as they're kind of gambling on what the child's future path is. And I think that's really fascinating because we talked a little bit about this. But if you have a kid who is, like you're saying with Gryffindor, maybe they do wish that they were brave and all that, and they go to Gryffindor and they are around a bunch of people like that, and therefore they develop those abilities and they become, the quintessential Gryffindor. Or you put them into Slytherin and they become an ambitious D-bag. And so it is interesting how much of that is a self-fulfilling prophecy when it's on the fence, puts a kid in one, and then it's oh yeah, you turned into what you were told to be, basically.
It's the psyche of being defined. And I think there's things in society that do that, in certain places to kids, but just being oh, this is your personality for the rest of at 11.
You are this.
You haven't gone through puberty in your life.
Well, and it's such an interesting concept too, though, because so many books do this, right? You look at the
Divergent.
My gosh, why are they all? What was that, Mitchell?
Divergent.
Yeah, Divergent splits them into houses. There's another one I'm trying to think of, and so it's a very common theme, and I feel like it's only become more common since the Harry Potter books came out. That there's 3, 4, 5, different houses or schools or tribes or whatever it is. and that they go ahead and define you and put you in them. In some cases, you are allowed to choose, but even then, switching later is basically impossible. So it kind of determines a lot of the rest of your life and who you spend your time with and build relationships with.
Well, like it did come from like houses are just way to organize kids, but then you bond with those people and, you know, that can be. And then there's like almost a fraternity version of this as well. But like it should be said, in our elementary school, we were on different, they called them tracks, and we were different colors. We were yellow track. And then in our middle school, it was different castles. We had Dover and Heidelberg and Blarney and one other one.
I can't remember.
They didn't have that when I was
No,
there.
so that happened while I was there. Our school system went from year-round to traditional. And so even in the middle school, you were still on your track. So we were a color, I think, still. But then when they went to traditional, they changed. And I 100% think that was because of Harry Potter that they switched over to that castle system.
Influence. Our middle school is actually architecturally designed. It's gone now, but it was architecturally designed, as was the one just down the street, to be like kind of an open learning thing. Like they didn't have the ceilings go all the way up because they wanted learning flowing through the air, and just the design was all,
there was no walls on the back of your classroom.
There were 4 staircases that were literally kind of like you go up to your tower in a way. And there were no windows until I think when you were there or just leaving. Anyway, it was an interesting concept because they ended up like retconning. Why do we use, I can't use that word in that context, essentially like doing work to like normalize it as much as they could, which is interesting. But
it was great when mass shootings came around and we had no walls.
Well, even the walls they had were like those folding temporary walls. You'd have walls between you and the next class.
Or they would use
your back
lockers,
wall was like lockers that were only like chest high, and so it was open out to there.
They did build in some walls by the time I was there, but still some of them, they just had these soundproofing panels above the lockers. Anyway, Jamie, I kind of stepped on your last section. So is there anything else you want to offer to this discussion where we have overindulged a prop from a children's book?
So I was supposed to just talk about uses outside of the sorting. So as Mitchell mentioned, there was Harry in Dumbledore's office, which I talked about earlier too. And then in the Chamber of Secrets, the hat comes to Harry and has the sword for him. And that helps Harry fight the Basilisk. And then did you talk about the Battle of Hogwarts?
No.
And then the last time we see the hat, and it's kind of
important.
I think we're unsure of what happens to the hat after this. But we know the hat still exists and that they still sort people after the Battle of Hogwarts. So Voldemort summons the hat in the moment where they think Harry's dead, and he declares there will be no more sorting at Hogwarts. And then he shoves the hat on Neville's head to make an example of him and sets it on fire. And that's when, in that crazy one moment, Harry reveals himself from under the cloak, and Neville is able to remove the hat and pulls out the sword, and immediately, as it should be, canon in the book, kills Nagini, the snake. And so just overall, when we see the hat, the very few times we do outside of the sorting, it kind of proves that it's carrying on the founders' legacy and what they wanted for Hogwarts. It's like almost protecting the school. So it's protecting the school from the Basilisk, and Harry directly is connected through Godric Gryffindor by getting the Sword of Gryffindor, which comes to Harry in his time of need. And then it comes to Neville again to defend the school against Voldemort wanting to take over it and change the way that Hogwarts works and is run. And so it's kind of cool, like when you really do think, and if you do play Legacy, which I think these brothers should, it goes in really deep about the lore of the school and all this stuff. But it's a cool way, for one, of going in depth on the school's history, but also the fact that like this is besides the school itself, this hat is the last thing standing from the original founders and how it's carrying on the school's legacy, and it protects the school. So just as much as Neville and Harry defeat the final Horcruxes, the hat helped do that. Like it gave Neville the sword in his moment of need to immediately kill the snake. It really is a guardian of Hogwarts, and it warns people, and it takes care of the school, and it protects the students who are loyal to the school.
So here's a question I have as we talk through all this and how important the sorting hat is. Why didn't Voldemort try and turn the sorting hat into a Horcrux if it was that central to the
I think it's too
school
powerful.
that he was so obsessed with? That might be true. I wonder if
4 of the greatest wizards ever. And it was protected in Dumbledore's office, and he was afraid of Dumbledore.
Yeah. That's true. He may not be able to get in there. Well, and I also think through Arthur Weasley's sage advice to never trust an object that can think for itself, that we learn in book 2.
If you can't see where it keeps its brain, technically
if
you could say the brain's in there.
Maybe. Well, there's swords in there apparently, so its brain got stabbed. Maybe I don't know.
This is random, but they should have tried to pull the diadem out of the hat. They should have been like, "Oh, this is similar to the sword.
Put it on a Ravenclaw's head.
Put it on a Ravenclaw, who's in dire need of that wisdom."
Whole quest. Wait. What if the entire quest for the Horcruxes had been as simple as asking the effing hat to give them the items from the founders?
That would have
Harry,
given you.
You didn't even think of that, did you?
Items?
Yeah. Well, it would have given them the cup, the diadem, and the sword, and then arguably Slytherin's necklace. Those are items.
Well, that's 3 Horcruxes and the one thing to destroy them. I don't know. I just won with my pinky.
Well, that's true. I guess that was good pinky action. So the last thing is, because it has a personality and we don't know where it keeps its brain, I bet there's fan fiction out there about this, but I wonder where its personality came from. Like, did one of the founders or like someone else actually put their brain in there?
A lot of the things say that it has a little bit of each of their personalities, but my theory is that it's mostly Gryffindor because it was his hat.
So
but
you
it
get
also
all of his
seems
judgments and preconceived notions.
They were all a little bit of narcissists, except for maybe Helga. So this hat's really full of itself.
Yeah,
that's why it refuses to ever admit that it was wrong. That's just
What do you guys think about the depiction of the hat in the movies? It's one of the things I don't like about the movie. That's not at all how I imagine the hat, and I actually don't like it.
It's not at all how I imagined it, but once I saw it, I was like, I wish I had imagined it that way. Like, it just,
really?
They gave it so much personality and stuff. I think it came out pretty cool. I mean, I'm curious to see how they can reimagine it for the series, but I thought they did a good job.
It is at the theme park right before you get on to the Forbidden Journey, which is the ride inside the castle, and I think it looks pretty cool.
It does look cool there.
It's sitting there talking at you too.
Doesn't look cute on me when I put that thing on. Tell you that.
Do you doesn't Shauna have it? Shauna has one, doesn't she? What do you think? What do you want to be different in the television series?
I just like that it's described as patchworky and so it's more put together, or like an old hat of his that was fixed up. So I kind of like the idea of it kind of looking like that. I do like the way it's drawn, although also not how I imagined it in the Jim K illustrations of the books. But I'm just interested, and I hope they do something different with it. And I do think, I wonder how they would do it talking out of the brim as opposed to how it is kind of talking out of a fold, right? In the movies.
Yeah.
They'll figure it out.
I wonder though, because it's 1,000 years old, right? Like, that's an old day hat. So maybe that's why maybe it wasn't patched originally. Maybe they had to add patches as the material disintegrated over 1,000 years.
Well, I was going to say there could be some of
dirt, man.
hats from each founder, but we know it's all Godric. So maybe just over the years, they've just had to sew some regular fabric on.
I wonder if its personality has changed, if they've replaced swatches.
Or if it's gotten more bitter.
I don't know. I didn't write this down, but I did find it interesting. J.K. Rowling talked about how the hat wasn't her original idea for sorting. And there was an idea, it was almost like a machine. I almost think of names coming out of that machine on that old computer on the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie, where it spit out a name, a thing, it was
the Goblet of Fire?
Kind of. So maybe that's where she got that from. And then there was another idea she had where there was a statue of each founder.
Oh, I remember
and they got
this
sorted
one.
that way. But I just thought that was cool that she came to the hat from that, and I do kind of like it because I feel like it feels a little more original.
So I did ask ChatGPT because I was curious about other series that have houses or groups that people get sorted into, and there's a crap ton. I'm just going to read a few. So there's the Divergent books, like Mitchell said, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, apparently.
Well, no, they don't
Academy.
get sorted. They go to their parents' camp anyway.
Oh, okay, but still, there's a group, right? There's a set house they spend the whole time in. I don't know. Vampire Academy, which I don't know what that is. Book, apparently. The Giver books.
Well, they get sorted into professions, don't they? But it counts.
Yeah, that's similar. Red Rising. Maybe you read that. Aragon. Hunger Games. With the districts, it says that's not quite the same.
But it is you are predestined. You're a logger if you live in the district.
It's true. You're either going to be a coal miner or a fisherman or whatever. All the kid stuff. When we get to 12 or 16, you start to specialize.
What's the horny dragon book? Don't they get kind of
Fourth wing, yeah.
Isn't that Aragon? Oh, that's the horny you mean. Gotcha. Fourth wing.
You
lots of
thought I
different
meant a horned dragon.
Oh,
You guys
what's
are
that
such
one called
nerds.
again?
At least
right.
they're older at that point. And
Yeah,
I
no,
think in
they're
that one,
adults.
you're
It's
like,
university.
oh, but you decide what track you go on if you're going to try to be a scribe or a flyer.
Once you decide to be a dragon rider, I think they're still kind of in teams, or they're in like squadrons, but I don't think it's sorted.
I think you're
that's
just
done by
assigned,
choice.
and then you have to see if a dragon kills you or accepts you.
Anyway, look,
They
we've
reproduce,
delved
don't they? They're
into
horny.
the sorting, into the hats. We didn't talk about different types of hats, which I thought we could have gone into, but here we are. Hats very important in the Harry Potter universe, even though they probably won't have them in the movies because they gotta show the kids' faces. And hats without brims are stupid. On we go. Thanks for joining us on our deep dive on hats. Please hit us up on social media at HPTVPod or email us at HPTVPodcast@gmail.com. Rate us, review us, 5 stars. For Jamie and Steven, I'm Mitchell. Jaime, send us out.
Peace out, snitches.